morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Q&A session on the topic of ethical practices when reporting on children. Peace, which stands for protecting environment and children everywhere, is committed to promoting ethical reporting, especially on the subject of child sexual exploitation and abuse. And as part of our broader mission, we focus on educating and building the capacity of journalists to ensure responsible coverage that protects children's dignity and safety. And while ethical reporting is just one aspect of our work, it plays a crucial role in shaping public understanding and safeguarding vulnerable children. And to help us explore this topic further, we are pleased to have Mr. Amantha Perera joining us today to share his expert insights. To tell you a little bit about Mr. Amantha, he is currently based in Melbourne, Australia, where he is a PhD candidate at the University of South Australia, specializing in journalism and technology facilitated threats. He also serves as a consultant and skills strategist, public speaker, and project lead at the Dart Center for Journalism and Trauma, Asia Pacific. In addition, he's also an experienced journalism researcher, educator, and trainer. Thank you so much again, Mr. Amantha. Sorry for the the delay earlier. I appreciate you being candid about it. So I think I'll just get right into the questions. Mr. Amantha, I would like to start by referencing a post where you highlighted, I think, an article where you highlighted about the a recent WhatsApp profile scam that had significantly affected Sri Lankan journalism networks. Could you elaborate on whether there's a connection between such scams and ethical or professional journalism practices?
So, how the scam and the phones of journalists being scammed links to ethical reporting and ethical journalism practice? There are two fundamental issues here. One is when you are a journalist, you enter into a contract with the public, which is that you as the journalist will act as a watchdog. So for you to carry out those professional duties, you require a certain set of transparency, certain set of ethical standards, and also that you be provided access to information, you be provided unheeded, unimpeded access to information that is of public value. Now, you set those standards as a journalist when you are reporting, and you set those standards on your sources. Now, the issue here is that similar standards need to be set when the issue at hand is journalist or journalism. So in this case, there's never been something like that. We don't know as yet, and it's about 3 weeks now, how these phones were scammed, what really happened, and why it happened. Now, why it is important to look at this in a journalistic kind of framework is that if these phones were scammed or hacked, which we are not sure of, from publicly available information, what we can determine is that they were scammed, not that they were hacked. And if it's a scam for financial gain. Well, then that needs to be made public, because if a similar situation arose, say for example in a public institute, someone who is reporting on that, a journalist who is reporting on that, will expect the officials who are at high levels in that institution to uphold standards of such transparency. So when you enter into such a contract with the public, you're duty bound to be transparent as much as you can when these kind of issues happen. And we haven't seen that. And it's a lot of confusion, it's a lot of smoke, it's a lot of, smoke and mirrors that is going on. And what is important here also is that the scam, from what we know, has impacted several high-profile journalists. Now that means that these are not journalists who are just entering the career, these are at a very high senior level. Now, that itself also carries a certain level of security concerns. Now, that's number
Yeah.
one. The other one is that when you do the job of a journalist, there is what is called the duty of care for your colleagues. That means, as a journalist, you have a duty to care for the well being of your fellow journalists, which is physical, which is psychosocial, which is mental well being, all that. Now, if your phone, or let's say someone who is unauthorized or unknown in this case, has access to my WhatsApp profile, which means all the communications that I've had on that WhatsApp profile are now accessible to that unknown entity. Now, as a journalist, what kind of conversations could I have? I may have conversations and content that are completely of a confidential nature, that relate
Yeah.
to my reporting, that sources have revealed to me in confidence, that no one else, most certainly no one unknown, will have access to that. That's number one. Now, if such an unknown entity has access to such a trove of information, what will happen then? The other level is about privacy. We all
Yeah.
know when we have conversations and interactions with other individuals on a private level, right? They can involve all kinds of material, all kinds of conversations. Now, that too, that kind of content is too has become vulnerable. So, the issue here is not that these phones fell victim. We are all susceptible to become victims of that. In this age, in this time, no phone, no digital
It's
equipment
safe.
is
Yeah.
not out of risk. That's not the issue. The issue here at stake is that because the scam impacted high level journalists, the two issues at stake, we need to be transparent as to how this happened, and we need to be transparent with our public, because that is what we demand from others who are outside of the journalism community when we report on them. Number two, we need to also be transparent because there's a huge security risk, because all those numbers are now available to anyone who can put it out on the dark web. All those information, all that content is now available to someone who can use it for all kinds of purposes. So that is where the link with journalism and ethics comes into play.
Yeah.
Because if, as a journalist, you want to adhere to a certain set of ethics, right? And
Yeah.
you demand or you expect others to also adhere by those ethics and also to respect them, then we need to show that we follow those.
That's right. I think when it comes to the safety issue, and do you think, just to add to that, to the topic of, since we're talking about journalists, do you think that this was something deliberate in the sense aimed at journalists? Have you tried to research on this? And if they were seniors, we are assuming that they probably are maybe not as aware to the like when it comes to digital safety and that kind of thing. Do you think that they were behind when
So
it comes to that?
yeah, there's several facets. One is a little bit difficult for me to kind of look at this because I'm so far removed from what happened.
Yeah.
From what we know, this level of scam has been happening in the banking sector for a while. So
Right.
banks and those who have been those who work in banks have told me that, look, we've known this, and we have continuously told our customers not to share their verification details
Yeah.
with no
Yeah.
one, right? So as far as we know, this is not a new scam. That this has been happening, and this is a scam aimed at financial gain. So I know of one instance where someone deposited money because of a message that was received through a phone used by a journalist. Now that's what we know. And from what we can gather, we feel what we know is that no, we don't think journalists were targeted because they were journalists. We don't see any trend or any available evidence. I have to stress on the word available because, like I said earlier, because of lack of
Yeah.
information, we don't know exactly what happened. There's
Right.
been one video where we have a slight idea about like how that scam can take place. So uh, now we know that this was for financial gain. Now if it was a financial gain, then there is different levels of security aspects that come into play, so which means these phones were not hacked due to their engagement in journalism, and that may probably be a peripheral effect. Now you asked me about digital know-how and hygiene. Unfortunately, Sri Lanka is like a place where you have two different levels of know-how. There are experts and there are journalists who have very good awareness of what digital security is, what digital
Yeah.
technology is, and what digital hygiene is. But there is a vast majority of journalists, very senior journalists, who do not have that kind of awareness.
Yeah.
Now, the issue here is not training, the issue is adapting, because there's continuous countless number of trainings that take place. What
Yeah.
we see
Yeah.
is there's less adaptation, and this is
Yeah.
also not an issue that we need to kind of like import foreign experts into Sri Lanka to do this. No,
Exactly.
we have Sri Lankan
The
experts
resources in our
can
country.
really kind of like give expertise that can be adapted and probably applied in a Sri Lankan context. What like this reflects is that most of the digital hygiene know-how either has not been adapted or has been difficult to adapt. So if you look at like what we know about this, it's a very very simple case of someone sharing a verification code with another party. So it's a basic, what we call bait and switch. You bait
Right.
somebody to get their
Exactly.
attention and then you switch
Mm.
to scam. So that is what has happened. So at the end of the day, it's more about adapting and more about being serious about like digital hygiene. And I think like that's also an issue because the level of attention that this scam gained from the
Yeah.
Sri Lankan media community, even after so many phones were hacked, even after so many phones of high profile personalities were hacked, it doesn't
Yes.
constitute to the dangers that it poses. I mean, when I saw this, the first thing to me was like, look, whoever has access to that WhatsApp profile now has access to all the numbers, now has access to all the communications. And what does that mean? All those numbers are now vulnerable to a certain level.
Yeah. That's right. Thank you, Mr. Amantha, for explaining that aspect of when journalists are faced with something like this.